Introducing the reigning, defending, Inside Fighting host, Bobby Sid Clark.
All right, guys. Well, we have Joanne Calderwood joining us today, or nicknamed JoJo, as many people know her better. And JoJo, thank you so much for coming.
No, thank you for having me. Great to be here.
First, I wanted to, congratulate you on your last fight with Jessica Eye. Obviously, you look, extremely impressive there. She's always a tough veteran. She's fought for the belt. She's seemingly been around forever as well, too, in the UFC. And I wanted to ask you how your preparation for that went and how you felt going into the fight.
That camp was really good. I felt really, really good about, I want to say, like, every fight you go in and you've always got, like, an injury or something that's happened in the camp. And there was little things that happened in that camp, but I feel like that was the best camp. But I don't want to jinx myself because now I'm having the best camp. But yeah, that was the lead up to that fight. Just couldn't have went any better. And it was a little bit stressful, traveling to the other side of the world. And I had to go out there a little bit earlier because my teammate was also fighting, but she was fighting a couple of days earlier. So with quarantine and all that, it was a bit stressful for the team. But we just made the most of it. And yeah, it was awesome to get back on the W side and have a good performance at this time.
Now, I know leading up to that fight, you had said, obviously, you guys were not training together, but you were training at the same performance institute. And, you had I don't want to say a grudge against her, but some things that kind of rubbed you maybe the wrong way. Did you get a little more motivation, like in the later rounds, training for that fight because of that? Like, do you thrive on, obviously, you're always training, but does that give you a little extra edge in the training room?
I think it can go against you because even if you watch that fight back, I'm like, I just go out there and I just kind of wanted to get my hands on her. So sometimes that can, if you go in there and you fight on emotions, it's not good sometimes because this game, MMA, is a hard sport to play, and you have to be in the zone, you have to be disciplined, and there's all these things that have to play in effect on fight day. So when I look back at the first round, I'm like, oh geez, luckily it was okay. But you can see it when I went back after the first round, my team was like, okay, calm it down. Let's not get carried ahead. So for me, no, every day I went in and I would see her at the PI because we both trained there, and it didn't give me extra motivation. I'm always motivated for myself because I know I get confidence in having a good camp. So I'm always concentrating on getting in there and training. And also that's the kind of thing that I didn't really like about her. She's always drama, and whenever we would be in the same place, it would be like she would be always talking, and I'm someone that just shut up and get the job done and get in there and get out. And yeah, so if anything, she would probably, if she was there, she would play with my motivation another way, because I would be like, I can't listen to her. Just want to get in there and get it done. So yeah, it was the opposite.
Well, I think that's what so many fans of the sport love about you when you came in. You're from Scotland, obviously, and then you listen to you, and you're very, soft-spoken and so kind, right? And it's like, oh, being a fighter as well, too. It's a really, really nice, contrast from some of the things that we see. And now you're moving over to an opponent, Lauren Murphy, who's obviously, been on a tear as well, too, 4-fight win streak. And again, someone who comes across as incredibly nice in interviews. I imagine, it's a little bit of a different feel going into it. I know your preparation, you said, is going well. How do you feel, you're going to be effective in this fight, or what do you feel you bring to Lauren Murphy that she's not going to be able to handle?
I'm just really excited for this next one. I feel like she's very similar to the girl that I just fought, Jessica Eye. So I know she brings it. like what Jessica Ai does. So I know it's going to be an exciting one for the fans. So I'm excited for that because I know she likes to scrap. And obviously the card that we're on it's a massive one. And yeah, I just feel like I'm going to go in there confident. Right now my camp's going great, feel great, my weight's good. And yeah, I'm just going to take it to her and do whatever I can to get the win. And I know she's going to be very, very, very tough, but you know, I'm there to get that W no matter what.
Now, obviously, I'm looking forward to that fight quite a bit, but I know one that's kind of been on the radar with Valentina has been there. It's seeming like every time you go on Sherdog or anything, I'm like, isn't she fighting Valentina next, Valentina next? If you get this win, do you think that that's the next logical fight for you?
Yeah, for sure, because I know Lauren she felt like she was next, and then whatever happened, Jessica came into the picture, and that was a great fight to happen. So UFC done a good job on that. But and Valentina is very vocal about she just wants to stay active. So that's great, and that's someone I respect and want to fight. I love, like, I joined MMA because in Muay Thai I wanted to fight the best, and there was too many politics of too many organizations, too many belts. That's why I love being in UFC, and they make you fight they make you fight up to get to the best in your division, and then the best in their division is fighting whoever's under them. So that I love that, and I just like staying active and, you know, proving myself each fight and getting better. And I think it's definitely going to be the next fight. Whoever wins this fight is definitely going to be fighting Valentina for sure.
Yeah, that's what I feel is, I think everybody senses that too. This is kind of a, you know, without them saying it, a title contention fight for sure, right? So, and what do you feel you would bring to Valentina that she's not seen before? Like, what are your strengths against her style?
Man, every fight she keeps on, I'm just like, wow, this girl is awesome. And you know, for me, like, I know if I do face her, then there'll be a lot of negative, or what's she gonna do, and she's just gonna be the next one, because Valentina is doing a great job. She's just going in there and getting the job done. But for me, I just feel like I'm tough. Yeah, I have toughness on my side. I have the Scottish blood in me, and I'm just going to go in there, and you know, you got to be in it to win it. And I know it's going to be a great challenge, and I look forward to, if I get into that position, to be able to be the next person to fight her.
For sure. And I think that's, I mean, you would know this, you know, better than most, obviously, but I think a lot of the, you know, fights are won and lost, you know, leading into the fight and how they feel going into it. A lot of people mentally seem defeated. Like, you can tell when they're going in, they're like, yeah, you know, I can beat her, and they're almost trying to build themselves up. I know you listen to, you know, some motivational speakers, and you know, are really been religious as well too at times. So, or are religious now, I should say. And those giving you something else to lean on can really help. But you always seem mentally strong. Like, there's never been a fight that you've gone into where you haven't seemed like you know, are extremely confident in your abilities. And you know, a lot of fighters are like that, but you can see it sometimes where it's like, people are acting different as they're walking into the octagon, and you know, more often than not, that's when they're not fighting to the best of their abilities, right? So I want to take it back a little bit. I mean, I've heard this in an interview before, but I don't think, you know, I like to find out where people actually got started in MMA, because, you know, I've been a fan since the late 90s, and it's, you know, there weren't many people doing it. So it's amazing to see fighters nowadays who are, you know, it's like, well, how did you actually get started? Because how did you fall into it? Like, was it the VHS days? And you actually started in Muay Thai. So, you know, I had heard or even saw on Wikipedia, that, you know, at 13 years old, your brother was going into a class. A friend was supposed to be there. He didn't show up. You wound up going, and that's what got you started. Can you elaborate on that and how that led into mixed martial arts?
Yeah, so exactly what you says. I accidentally, like, it wasn't planned or anything. My mom just was like, will you go along with him because he doesn't want to go alone? And I was like, yep. And as soon as I went there, it was just something that clicked, that I was like, man, I love this. And it just, everything, like obviously it started off as a hobby. I was just going there twice a week because I couldn't drive, and it was depending on my mom if she could take me. But then as soon as I got my driving license, and you know, 2 started turning into 3, and then it just turned into I wanted to be there every day for the whole day. So this thing just pulled me in and got the love straight away, and then started fighting, loved it. And then it just kind of, I got to like, I think I was like 19 and 1. My record was pretty good, but, oh, sorry.
No problem.
I just got a call there. So my record was getting to, it was pretty good in Muay Thai, but I was like searching for fights. I wasn't even bothered about the titles, and I just couldn't get fights with the top girls. So I started doing jiu-jitsu in the gym that I was at, where I trained Muay Thai. And then there was MMA fighters at the time, and Rosie Sexton from England, who was an active MMA fighter back then. She was coming up every so often, and I started doing stand-up with her. Then I was like, okay, let's do MMA. And then the ball started rolling in there because I was doing jiu-jitsu, and then I started doing wrestling, and yep, the rest is history, and here I am. Still love Muay Thai, but MMA took over and gave me so many opportunities and took me all over the world. Like my third fight, I was in India fighting in a massive promotion, so very grateful. And then went on to Invicta, had 4 fights with them, and then UFC. It just, my career, it's been very up and down, but the opportunities that I've just jumped into has been awesome. A girl from Scotland, like I can't ask for a better path into the MMA world.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so incredible is, you know, Dana obviously talks about this a lot, but he's like, you know, some people like football, and football has 2 different meanings on different sides of the world. It's different in Scotland than it is in North America, but, you know, everybody understands fighting. They may not like it, but everybody understands it. Like I appreciate cricket. I sometimes look at their players and I'm like, oh, look at, you know, but I know nothing, I don't know how to play the sport still, yet I grew up playing baseball as well too when I was really young, and it's funny because there's so few sports that transcend the world, and then you get these, you know, these stars. You have yourself coming from Scotland, you have obviously Conor McGregor coming from Ireland. It's, you know, and there's more Irish people in the United States and Canada than there is in Ireland at this point, but you know, that reach to come over, like you can be an Irish soccer player and you can play in Europe, but it's like you said, you went to India, like, well, yeah, like it's that's not something that's available in any other sport, really, to have that kind of reach. Now, I wanted to ask you, you've obviously fought at a couple different weight classes. You're at 125 right now. Do you have a preference on weight class, or is it just, you know, you've obviously gotten stronger, you know, as you've continued to train? What is your favorite weight class to fight at? Where do you feel comfortable?
Definitely heavyweight, you know, when you don't have to worry about your diet. I've never reached heavyweight, don't worry. Definitely for me is, like, it started off really good in strawweight when I was younger and smaller, but as you get older, and I feel like right now flyweight is definitely the division for me. And obviously with having access to the Performance Institute, they have helped me understand my body. You know, I used to think carbs were bad and wouldn't want to, especially if I was in camp, I wouldn't touch a carb. And then like I go to the PI and they're like giving me all this data. They're like, no, your body needs carbs. I'm like, oh, really? Carbs aren't bad? So to have that education now and the access to the PI and have nutrition, just you have to eat this, that, and then you're going to perform great. So having the belief in that and the confidence that I am fueling my body to the best of the ability, which why would I not? And to think back years ago when I used to do it all wrong, I'm like, oh, geez. But yeah, I'm definitely in a great place right now, and definitely flyweight is the way forward for me.
You mentioned something interesting there where you said, confidence in what you're eating. And I think that's actually super important. What's really amazing is like you, and not as many fighters as you would think, really take advantage of those performance institutes that the UFC has built up, because they really are, they're special, and they have, obviously science is always changing, but the best of the best that they have in the world right now for these things are there, and they're giving that to their fighters as well too. And I think that, nutrition, you said it, I don't think a lot of people talk about that enough, especially with, the wrestling mentality of North American sports or in fighting, where a lot of them are cutting weight, and that breeds over to the other guys. But the nutrition is something that I think, like a lot of UFC fighters would struggle with as well too. They think, or they're not sure if they're eating the right thing, but having the confidence that those people are putting the right things in front of you, I think that was a really, important thing you mentioned, because back in my days in training, just, more like an athlete back then, it was the same thing. I never knew if I was eating, do you take whey protein, do you vegan people don't know, right? And even there's so much conflicting information then. So what you said carbs, that was one thing that's introduced. What is like your daily, if you go average breakfast, lunch, and dinner, if they're not breaking it out, do you mind saying what you would eat on a normal training day?
Yeah, so for me, carbs is really important. We've done the test and I do burn carbs. So for me, especially on sparring days, I have to have like at least 2 slices of toast, and then I'll have eggs and avocado. And one of the slices I'll put peanut butter and jelly on, or jam, as we say in Scotland. But yeah, so that's my breakfast every morning. And then I'll have like chicken, fish with carbs, rice, sweet potato, that kind of thing. And then dinners, it's pretty boring, but dinner's pretty much the same. But yeah, I can remember, like, when you're saying about the confidence, I remember my first camp here, I was like, I'm like 2 weeks from the fight and I don't know if I should be eating carbs. And I did like not have carbs that morning. And the PI, my nutritionist, came over to the gym and watched me spar. And he was like, he had everything in the iPad. He had me hooked up to the heart rate monitor and everything. And he's like, there's something not right. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, what did you have for your breakfast? And I was like, just my 2 eggs and a little bit of avocado. He's like, that's why your heart rate, you didn't reach your max, because you didn't feel yourself to take your heart to work that high level. So I was like, okay, you have my confidence, and I'm never doing that again. And I've never missed weight. I've never, there's always that stress of, oh geez, am I going to make weight? Everyone's got it, but I've never, they take that stress away from me, and it's, I just have to do as they say, and it makes my job a lot easier.
Yeah, you touched on something else I wanted to get in. I think a lot of things fans would like to see in the sport is the, nighttime weigh-ins, what they weigh in at. And, females tend to struggle a lot more with the weight cuts, because you guys, have different bodies and different things you have to deal with, and they don't realize what a struggle that is on the fighters, especially with the significant weight differences. It's not like boxing where, it's 3 to 5 pounds. And with the wrestling component, it makes a difference. What do you walk into training camp with? Like, what's a comfortable weight? And then what are you, by fight night, what is your typical weight at a 125-pound fight?
So I'll start camp usually between 15 and 20 pounds over. Right now I'm 15 pounds over, and usually I'll cut the 5 pounds through a diet and that kind of thing. But I'm usually right now I'm fueled with creatine, which puts on a good few pounds. So as it gets closer to the fight, with diet and you're taking out sodium and all, like the creatine, everything comes out, then you start to get closer. And usually I'll cut 10 pounds of water and that's usually done through the struggles of sauna, hot baths, the fun stuff. And then usually I only put on maybe, I think the past few fights I've only really put on 10 pounds back on. So I'll go back in at like 136.
Would you prefer that weight cutting wasn't really a thing, or you used to it now and feel like it helps you in preparation for your obviously there needs to be a weight class, but are you used to the system? Would you prefer it was done the day up, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, because you see it every weekend, people are missing weight, or people, the odd time people are collapsing, and, I've had a few bad weight cuts, and yeah, I would like to see it. I just don't know how they would do it. Everyone's, when you ask a girl or a guy their weight, they always lie about it. I don't know why there's this, why everyone can't just be honest, especially in the sport. Guys want to be higher, girls want to be lower. There's never really anyone being honest, but I would like in the future to take that out of the equation, because I know that performances would be better and everyone would be a lot more stronger, and obviously mentally going into it as well, because weight cuts can be hard on your body and your mind. So yeah, I would definitely like to see in the future just everyone fighting at their own weight, or within 5 pounds, not cutting that much.
Yeah, so for most people, I've never had to cut weight either, and I don't think they realize the struggle. I equate it to being, I've been in the sauna too long before, and you're like, oh, this does not feel good, and you got to multiply that by God knows how much in order to actually feel that weight cutting effect. And I don't think people you hear fighters all the time, oh, the first fight is over, and you're like, well, if they're saying that in regards to a weight cut, right? I can only imagine the I don't want to say really sometimes traumatic experience it is to be cutting that weight, especially on short notice or something. So yeah, thank you for your honest opinion on that one. Now I want to take it back again. So you were officially signed in 2013 to the Ultimate Fighter, and obviously that's something that's so big for everybody. That's kind of like the mecca. Obviously you were fighting UFC caliber fighters in Invicta before that, and it's not so much the competition level. And you see guys like Chandler, who came out in his first performance, did an amazing job. At the top, the fighters know there's tough people in every sport, in every gym. But getting that opportunity and saying, hey, I'm in the UFC, how did that feel, and who was the first person you called?
Yeah, gives me chills thinking about it, but feels like so long ago, but it's not even been that long. But yeah, my mom was the first person that I told, and I was a little bit anxious at first. I'm like, wow, this is a big step, and but I jumped in, always jumping in at the deep end, and I don't regret it, and I feel like it was meant to be. Obviously it was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? But then I just remember that this is what you do, that you don't know anything else. This is your love, and you're getting this opportunity. So yeah, I was definitely excited and also nervous.
Yeah, it's no, I'm sure there's a lot of fans that are happy you made it to the UFC, and I know. Just seeing you at press conferences and everything, you can tell that you have a lot of the UFC staff and executives have a lot of respect for you. They always talk very highly of you, And there's emotions in all different fighters. Everybody's got a different personality, but you've obviously been very well received from the fans, but not just in Scotland, like everywhere, right? Canada, USA, and then again the executive team as well. So it's very well deserved. For sure. Now, obviously, you grew up with a kickboxing background. You said you started jiu-jitsu at 19. Is there any, if you were able to, would you ever do other kickboxing fights? Is that something you still am like, I kind of miss just going into a kickboxing fight Or is MMA like, no, this is I love this so much. I love the multidisciplinary training of mixed martial arts more.
I definitely think MMA is much, much, much harder. You know, it's like trying to fit 3 disciplines, but as well as your strength and conditioning, your mobility, your recovery, everything into 24 hours, and you have to be resting. So I definitely think MMA is a lot harder, and it's not for the faint-hearted, but and I do miss Muay Thai because you just went in there and you just square goal, you know, no one backed away, no one shot for a takedown, and you know, that was my bread and butter. So, but I like the challenges that MMA brings, and it definitely, yeah, I feel like MMA is definitely one of these sports that is so hard on your body and your mind, but it's the most rewarding, especially if you can get to where, like, if you can get to the UFC, and it definitely pays off.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think Anderson was on with Ariel yesterday or the other day, and I think he had said that it seems like he might be pushing for a boxing match, but said MMA is just too many, you know, injuries at this stage, where he's, you know, just happy just training and doing that, which is nice to see as well.
When you think about it, like for even just Muay Thai, you don't even have to train with someone. You know, the Thais have got it. They never spar. You know, they're fighting every weekend. So basically their training would be, and you could do it for Muay Thai, just pads, bag work, you know, shadow boxing, skipping. You can't do that for MMA. You physically have to be in there with another person, and you're using your weight, you're using their weight, and just one little tiny mistake can injure you, or, you know, hurt you and give you all the, I mean, you get sore from it just from training, but yeah, it's just that little thing that could end your career or put on a few months for you not to fight. So yeah, definitely hard one, but I love it.
I guess you can't wrestle by yourself, right? That'd be a little difficult. Yeah, so, yeah, that makes sense.
Be a little bit weird.
Yeah. Do you feel you know, you've got to be, I can't think of another, you've got to be the largest MMA fighter to come out of Scotland, really, that I can recall, like in terms of mixed martial arts, for sure. Do you feel that the talent pool has improved there in the gyms? Is there more facilities? Obviously, you go to the States to train, like many people do. They travel around the world. George St. Pierre, we've got great facilities here, but you know, he would go to the States regularly. Do you feel it's improved in Scotland since you were 13, let's say?
Definitely improved. Still got a lot of room for improvement and growth. I mean, the COVID didn't help things, because even now, like, the gyms are just now opening up, so that for sure did not help. But I mean, last time I was back was probably like 2 years ago, and I definitely saw a lot more females in the gym that I used to train at, the Grip House in Glasgow, and a lot more people doing MMA, which is great from when, if you think about from when I started. So yeah, it's definitely growing, but we're still way behind.
So in the future, we're going to see some little JoJos coming out of the woodworks then from Scotland. We should be prepared for, right?
I hope I've inspired people out there. If this is their love, I hope I've inspired them just to never give up and go for it. That's
great. You guys, you had the biggest influence again. I mean, obviously very developed countries, but when you say things like that, Ireland, Scotland, like, you know, just that belief in yourself being able to do it. And you mentioned it several times, whether it be belief in your food, you know, belief in your training, but belief that you can do that. It doesn't matter, and you can't let those borders distract you from things. You could say, hey, my training held me back, right? Imagine, you know, you never got the call from the UFC. You could be one of those, I mean, you still would have been successful. You were already in other large organizations. But I think a lot of people use that, and it's very important. You know, you coming from Scotland and other places that are just smaller in population, where you could use that as an excuse to allow people to go, no, you can't use that as an excuse. There's always a you know, a will, and that's very powerful. And I guarantee you that's been the influence that you've given off. You say there's more women there, I'm sure, because you've come out of there and they're like, JoJo's done it, like, and it's almost unmeasurable. Like you'll be able to see it, but you've impacted more people than you could think, right? Which is really great. I want to finish it off with some fun questions. First, I'm going to go with what is your favorite drill, at least for right now in training? What's your favorite thing to do? What's your favorite drill or technique to train?
Right now, I would have to say it's this drill called Shark Tank, and it's basically you're in there for 3 5-minute rounds with your coach who's holding pads, and then you have a training partner, and basically they just try and mess you up. They just like try and make you break. Like you could be doing like 30 seconds of pads, and then you could be grappling or pummeling, and then you could be on the ground and pound bag. And for me, I get really nervous before I do it. You know, it feels like a fight. So I hate it, but I really enjoy it. And this is a drill that we do when we're in camp. So I just feel like afterwards, the reward from it is just my favorite thing right now. So yeah, even though it's crappy at the time, you're like, oh, this is good. And it's great for the confidence to know that you're like, you never broke me. I'm still standing.
That's funny to say, because it clearly shows your mentality of thriving in adversity, if that's your favorite.
This, like my John Wood actually just said it, popped it in the head, you know, like you guys we all come into the gym, and especially on sparring days, you're like, oh, I don't want to go with her, I don't want to go with him because they're hard rounds. But you know, if you come in there and you challenge yourself and you pick those people, then you go away feeling a lot better about yourself. And yeah, I really think that's great for challenging yourself and putting yourself in those hard spots. You definitely grow from it mentally.
Now, favorite cheat meal or first meal when you're done with the fight, if you're celebrating, what is it that JoJo's looking forward to?
Always pizza, pepperoni pizza with Oreo milkshake on the side.
What favorite pizza shop, or does it matter? It's just pepperoni pizza.
No, it doesn't matter. Usually Domino's, because I like their dip. I'm like a ranch and pizza person, so yeah, I like their dip from it. But yeah, anywhere. I mean, I could make it myself, and it would still be like, this is heaven.
Yeah, it's funny. My wife likes Oreo shakes, and last week I got the Brooklyn pizza from Domino's twice, and then she cut me off. Said I need to stop eating that every day. Who I don't know if you ever watched Marvel Comics or anything like that, but who's your favorite superhero besides yourself? Obviously, who would be your favorite superhero?
I like Batman. You know, that kind of dark but awesome. I feel like he would probably be my go-to if I had to pick. Yeah. Not because I fancy him or think he's a hunk or anything or that, but yeah, I think he's pretty cool.
Which Batman? Which was your favorite?
Ben Affleck, probably.
I think he did one, right? He was in one. Yeah. And got in pretty good shape for that one as well too. Are you a morning or a night person?
Definitely morning person. Night is mostly like, okay, it's time for bed. Let's get ready for bed. Yay. And yeah, my fiance actually makes fun of me. He's like, man, you're like a granny just getting excited to go to bed early. So yeah, I definitely would say I'm a morning person because I'm up early if I have the right amount of sleep.
Now, what is the one thing that motivates you, or something that's been consistent? Is it just, you know, wanting to see how good you can do? But like, what's carried you through from a teenager to now, and your driving force behind the sport and behind you know, yourself?
Yeah, I would say my work ethic of being, you know, I'm someone that wants to be in there early, be on the mat, warmed up, ready to go. And I got that from my mom. My mom, she was always like, she would always leave to go to her work early, and she would always be the last one out. And I feel like that inspired me even when I was young, but even now, like, I'm inspired by her, and I feel like that's made me who I am. And, you know, also the never giving up. There's been a lot of times where I've wanted to and I could have, but I've never, and I never will. And yeah, I would say that.
That's another important lesson there, is not giving up. You know, generally success is over the greatest failure, and a lot of people, they're right there, and then you give up. Not quitting is the key to success, right? So it's a very, very important note there. What is your biggest hobby outside of fighting?
Probably golf. I like playing golf. I've done that when I was younger, and then when I started traveling, when I would always go back to Scotland, it would be always my time to bond with my brother, because he was into golf. So I would always go to the driving range with him or go to the golf course with him. So my golf clubs are here, so I'll go I would say not as much as I would like, especially in camp, because you don't really get much time to yourself. But I definitely try and get out there once every month, even if it's just to range.
Now, we got a lot of Canadians who love golf and are upset right now because the golf courses are closed. Do you have a handicap do you know your handicap in golf, or what are you shooting on a par 18?
No, because we never done the full course. We would always only have time for the first 9, and to be honest, I would be like over it by the 9th hole, and I'd be like, okay, it's time to go get some food or get home. So yeah, maybe one day I'm hoping my brother will come out to Vegas, and we'll go and do a full course and spend the day there. And yeah, I'll know by then. But I'm sure it's probably terrible, depending if my brother's with me, because he keeps me right.
Isn't there a golf simulator in Vegas, or one really big one that's like really popular? It's either a bar or something like that, but there's something in Vegas that's really cool golf.
Yeah, Top Golf.
Yeah,
Top Golf.
Yeah. It's
pretty cool.
Yeah.
But also I've went a couple of times, and I went with terrible golfers, and they just like their swing is terrible, but they still manage to get a lot of points. So, but that's the game of golf, you know.
Yeah, that's keeping the drinkers happy. I think they're onto something there. That's probably I can't fault them for that. That's funny. Okay, last question. I think I know the answer to this one after the conversation, but with the exception of who's in your corner after a win, or after, you know, after any win, who is your first call?
My mom, just to make sure, because I know she worries about me, and especially being on the other side of the pond, it worries her. But yeah, it depends what time of the day it is, because with the time differences, so usually it'll be a text or a call if she's up, and yeah, I'll speak to her in the morning, or but yeah, I always make sure she's always watching, but I'll text her and make sure that she knows that I'm okay. I'm alive. I didn't die.
That's amazing. Jojo, thank you so much. I had a lot of fun with this, and I really appreciate you coming on the show. This is new for us, but I'm excited to get to speak with people like you, and then have you on and you know, answer some questions. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and I wish you all the best, Robbie.
Thank you.
Wish you all the best, guys.